Hey, what's up? Hello, everybody. Welcome to In the Room, a wrestling podcast from the Des Moines Register. I'm Cody Goodwin, the Register's wrestling writer, and I'm glad you're here for the first time on YouTube, following the trends of literally every other successful podcast by offering a YouTube option now. Big thanks to our buddy Dargan Southard for helping us on the back end of this experiment. We've seen some success doing this with our Hawk Central podcast, led by Kennington Smith and Chad Leistico. So the bosses have asked that we do the same thing here with our wrestling podcast. Going to try and do this once a week because those of you who have listened over the last 3 years know that I don't always have guests. Sometimes it's just me and whatever, press conference audio that I can gather over the course of the week. But, maybe this will allow us to be a little bit more consistent on that front in terms of gathering guests. And so joining me today, our guest, our YouTube guinea pig, Austin Sommer, EIWA InterMat correspondent. Austin, what's up, my man?
Doing good, Cody. Long time no see. Last time I saw you in person, we were at Nationals together, sitting next to each other at the finals.
That was, man. So it's exciting to finally get back here and talk some wrestling. The 22-23 season underway. Going to dive into a few different things today. We're recording this on a Wednesday, November 23rd. Wanted to pick your brain, Austin, about the NWCA All-Star Classic, just kind of real brief, which made its valiant return last night in Texas. Also going to preview the upcoming Iowa-Penn duel set for Saturday afternoon at Carver Hawkeye Arena. But first, it's Thanksgiving week. Austin, I'm putting you on the spot. I need to know your biggest food hot take. What is it? What do we got?
Biggest food hot take. I don't know if it's a hot take or not, but I'm definitely not a cranberry sauce, cranberry jam guy.
Ooh.
It's like the one thing I probably will pass on. I prefer the other sides, but cranberry, just not my thing. I'm not a picky eater at all. It's just one of those things I'm just not a fan of. I don't know if it's a hot take or not, but that's my hot take maybe. I don't know.
That's okay, because I feel like cranberry sauce or whatever I don't know, whatever your cranberry side is, it shines more on Thanksgiving. And so I'll count that, because when else are you going to eat cranberry, right?
And the big debate is people, I don't know about you out in the Midwest, on the East, it's, people like it from the can, people like it homemade. And there's a big debate between those two.
Got to have the ridges.
I'm out of that debate. So.
My biggest food hot take, and I'm curious what you probably think of this. I think turkey sucks. I don't like it. I don't like that it's dry, it's flavorless. I don't think it should be the featured meat or featured protein on a holiday that is centered around food, at least commercially. Mm-hmm. Not a fan of turkey. Haven't been a fan of turkey for a while. I've been banging this drum. I'm going to continue to bang this drum. It's that time of the year.
Yeah, maybe you eat too much and you get the sleepiness from the whatever chemicals in there, right? But no, that's not a hot take at all. I've seen people prefer ham. I see people do chicken and stuff too, and whatever else. But yeah, that's not too much of a hot take in my opinion. I've heard people complain they don't like turkey for the reasons you mentioned. Dry, not seasoned. But I don't have it too often, so I'm okay with it. Thanksgiving, it's not too bad for me.
So Iowa out here, a bunch of farm communities. There's a lot of people that'll do like beef tenderloins, or they'll smoke a brisket if they don't like the bird of choice. And those are my kind of people. Like I want some beef. I want something good rather than turkey. Because if we're going to smoke a bird for a primary meal, I would want it to be chicken, the more popular one. There's no Turk fillet, it's chicken fillet.
Yeah. Turkey is probably the least appetizing of the main meat categories. I agree with you. I guess it's just a traditional thing at this point, right?
I guess. I don't know. That's what my family's not going to have that tradition if I can help it. So I guess we'll see. We'll see. We're here to talk some wrestling. NWCA All-Star Classic made its valiant return last night. Wanted to kind of get your thoughts, just generally speaking. Kind of cool that it's back, right? Just the event itself, I think I refer to it as an early season exhibition because it's not really preseason. But just to line up that much talent on the mat together in one setting and one duel, that was fun, right? I know you probably didn't follow it as close as some others, but what were your initial thoughts when Flo and NWCA announced that it was coming back?
Obviously, like you said, not going on a limb here by any means, but yeah, it was awesome to be back, right? Have, the top 2, top 3, guys in the weight class competing against each other just to see where they're at right now, just see what they look like. You can kind of tell just from like I said, I didn't get to watch it, unfortunately, yet, but from what I've heard and some of the highlights I've seen, I saw people you could probably kind of tell was their first match of the year. I don't know if it's the weight cut thing or, first match jitters or just being on the big stage again. But yeah, from what I've noticed and kind of highlights I've seen, it was a little, maybe some wrestlers were a little hesitant, nervous, maybe, I'm not sure, but maybe that's just a few of them that I saw highlights of. But yeah, I mean, going back at you, what were your thoughts on that?
I thought it was like it's like an inconsequential match, right? Like just kind of go out there and let it fly. And I felt like we saw a little bit of that. Yeah. Most notably at 49, right? Gomez storming back to beat Sammy Sasso. That was fantastic. Yeah. Keegan O'Toole opening up a can on Dean Hamady. But then we also saw some really, like Rocky Elam scoring 3 takedowns to beat Jacob Warner. And that was, the third one came in overtime after Warner stormed back. Kirk Fleet and Cassiope just let it fly. Like that was fun.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was nice to see some of the women matches involved there too.
Oh, that was so cool for them,
that's
right?
That's coming on the national spotlight a little more. So to highlight some of those, women in the college rankings is fun to see as well too. Just to kind of get some names out there and just to see who's up and coming. Yeah,
and it was a mix of like NCAA women's wrestlers and NAIA women's wrestlers because there's they got those two things going on. Yeah. NAIA women's wrestling officially a championship sport now. NCAA working its way there. And on the women's side, it was really cool because you had Emily Shilson against Peyton Prussian. Shilson bumping up a little bit in weight and ultimately winning that match 4-4 on criteria. Adugo Nwachuku, who's the superstar from Iowa Wesleyan, bumping up in weight and taking out Alara Boyd. That was really cool to see. Yeah. And along those same lines, the one EIWA guy involved, Quincy Monday from Princeton, sort of bumping up or, I don't, maybe not the exact same thing because I think he was hovering around 65, but wrestling David Carr, who's full-fledged 165 pounder, Quincy on his way down to 157, rekindling the Carr Monday thing, right? Like that was, it was low scoring, but just like the fact that match happened at all was just a really, really cool thing, I thought, for the sport of wrestling.
Yeah, just in the storyline in general, right? Just between the dads being, wrestling back in the day and, just being superstar athletes in current day, the kids are, and returning national final champ is Carr from 2 years ago, right? And returning national finalist in Quincy Monday. So, they're high-end competitors, obviously. And it's just a weird match because Monday was supposed to be 165 and kind of changed his mind right before the season started. I guess he couldn't get up enough weight to cut down to 65 and be an effective size. So he decided to say 157. And I think you said he weighed in 163 or something. But, I mean, Carr is, like you said, full size 165. So slight size advantage to Carr there. But, it was a good match. Wish I would have seen a takedown from either one of them, if I'm being honest. But, just the way sometimes it happens, 2-1, whatever. But, again, I just love to see takedowns in matches. Yeah, it's hard for me to say, oh yeah, he won on a riding time point. Yeah, it just doesn't jive with me.
It's a weird thing to explain to people, right? Like,
yeah, it's weird.
Like, yeah, he won 2-1 because he rode him for more than a minute. Like,
yeah. People were just like, oh, he didn't get a takedown. The people that don't know sport, he didn't get a takedown, and it's like, no, but you can still win without it. And it's like, I don't know. I don't want to say it's bad for the sport, but I think getting a takedown is, obviously way more entertaining for the average fan. And, just for fans like me, it's like, I want to see a takedown, this riding time stuff, not for me, but, some people like it. I don't know. I'm probably on the fence on that, but that's just me. Yeah.
No, I'm with you. And, that match specific, like 2-1 was the final score, did not lack for action. Like both guys were, trying to set some things up and creating, shot, reshot, action, reaction. Their dads were both there, and Flo had cameras on both Kenny and Nate, and they were kind of wrestling with their sons, which was kind of cool.
Yeah.
They talked plenty about that during the match. Yeah, I think it's not like Quincy was significantly smaller, but you could definitely tell there in the third period as David kind of put the saddle on him for the ride. He finished with, I think, 1:16 of riding time, and that gave him the deciding point. That's when you could really tell that, okay, David's got a little bit of size on Quincy here. You could tell that Quincy's probably going to be a pretty big 57 pounder once he gets down to weight, but otherwise, like, Quincy stayed in there and battled, man. Like there were a lot of, I encourage you to go back and rewatch it. It was, he had some good hand fights. There was some good action there. Neither of them were able to connect, win in neutral. And David, he's gotten a lot better at his top wrestling over the last few years. And, that combined with the slight size advantage was really the difference in the match.
Yeah, like I said, I didn't see the whole match, but I saw some highlights. And like you said, they were going at it. They were kind of wrestling. They didn't just stand around. It wasn't a super boring 2-1 match from my gathering, but like you said, these guys were going at it. And it's an exciting 2-1 match. And I think maybe the pace a little bit, just, in addition to the weight advantage for Carr, might have been the advantage, kind of piggybacking off what you said. I think by the time the third period rolled around, if they were same weight, it might have been a little different. I don't know, but, just an all-star event. Glad they got together, and I'm glad Princeton was involved in that too, just because they're a program on the rise. Obviously, last time I was on your podcast, we talked about the Princeton Iowa match. Princeton is on those one of those up and up teams coming up here in the EIWA.
Heck yeah, man! 2 NCAA finalists last year. And it's funny that you mentioned that specifically because I feel like Penn, just with what they've been able to do on the recruiting trail and, the Penn RTC and what that's been able to do, what that's been doing for their program, right, with guys like Mark Hall and Jordan Burroughs and, all sorts of talented wrestlers that are in that room now. That's another team that, people not just around the EIWA, but really all over the country, like, hey, like what's be a good little entryway into, this Iowa-Penn breakdown, this duel coming up on Saturday, 2 p.m. Central Time at Carver. This is Penn's first duel of the season. They've been at a couple of tournaments already. But what's the overall vibe check on the Quakers coming into this weekend, man?
I mean, I talked to some of the people on staff last weekend at Keystone. They were excited for the match. Obviously, going to Carver Hawkeye, not many people get to do that if you're not wrestling for Iowa, right? But yeah, I think they have a little bit of a young team, but they're experienced. They had that COVID year off, had some guys jump up a few weight classes, hit the weight rooms hard. Last year, they actually were runner-up at EIWAs, which was surprising to a lot of people because it's usually Cornell and then, between Lehigh and Princeton, them two battling out. But for Penn to come up and they were neck and neck with Cornell until the very end, to the finals there. So I don't think they have quite the firepower Cornell has, but they're pretty solid up and down the lineup. And they're thinking they're going to win 4 or 5, maybe even squeak out a 6 win at Carver Hawkeye, which I think would be really impressive.
6 wins individually might win in the duel, right?
Most likely. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And there, you look at the, the probable lineups, at least that I got, maybe you got something different. I mean, Penn's coming in with 7 ranked dudes. 4 of them are in the top 20 at their respective weights. Like this is not, this ain't some Pud cupcake team that Iowa maybe has been wrestling the first few, duels of the season. They're 4-0 with 4 lopsided wins, but, Buffalo, Sacred Heart, Army's tough. Iowa actually had to rally to win that one after falling behind the first 3 weights, but then California Baptist, not quite on the, I guess I would consider Penn maybe a step up in competition for the Hawkeyes just based on what they've seen so far.
Yeah. And like you said, it's the holiday weekend, right? Thanksgiving's coming up, who knows what the weight cut's going to be like for some of these guys. And, first 1 hour weigh-in for Penn, that could be a difference, too. Cause like I said, they haven't had a dual meet yet. So, just, that 1 hour weigh-in is way different going into Carver Hawkeye. You got the jitters, you got nerves there. So, we could see a really good Penn team. We could see a team that could, be a little scared, hesitant, whatever the word you want to use is there. But I'm hoping we see the Penn team that's capable because they're super talented. They like to attack. They like to score. They kind of challenge each other with bonus points and, getting as many takedowns as possible. And we could be in for a good match here. I'm excited for it.
Absolutely. Yeah. Vibe check on Iowa. They've, they mostly just kind of taking care of business, right? Like this is a season where, patience is kind of the word, at least through the first couple of months here. They're not going to have probably their full superstar lineup that they're expecting to have come March. They haven't had it all month. It doesn't look like they're going to have it on Saturday. Who knows if they'll have it the next weekend when they wrestle Iowa State at Carver. Which I think adds to the intrigue a little bit of this duel, right? Because, right from the top, no Spencer at 125. That opens up an opportunity, right, for a guy like Ryan Miller to wrestle a guy like Aiden Harris, who, Harris has been struggling at 125 for a number of different reasons. That's a weight where it's like, okay, if you're Penn, you're circling that, you're highlighting it, whatever. Like, you score some bonus points there. And especially if the duel starts at 25, like you could take the wind out of that, Carver crowd pretty quickly. And then what do you do from there, right? Because, you're probably favored at 33. You're probably favored at 57, even though, we'll come back to that weight here in a bit. 49, a little bit of a toss-up. Like, where can you win those matches to, create a little bit of a snowball if you're Penn? And if you're Iowa, how good's your depth, right? Like that'll be a fun question here at a handful of different weights. I guess like if we're continuing down the line here, one big question from you, Austin, if you wanted one big question answered from Penn this weekend, what would that question be?
Yeah. I mean, I just want to see, they have the marketability, right? They're heavy on social media. Hey, look at us. We're doing all this stuff. I think it's time for them to get that kind of big win. They wrestled Penn State at Penn last season, beginning of the year. I think they won the first 4 matches and then lost the next 6, something like that. So they kind of had Penn State, who's been obviously the best team in the country. I know your Iowa fans probably hate hearing that, but Penn State has been the top dog for the last decade now. For them to kind of keep them on the ropes last year until the very end, it was a good sign for Penn. And this was before we actually knew how good Penn was, because this was December of last season. So it'd be nice to have them get a full team effort in here and, see if they could beat Iowa at Iowa, which would be, like I said, when's the last time that's been done, especially by a non-Big Ten opponent too. I'm sure it's been a while, but it'd be interesting to see if they're up for this challenge.
Yeah, no doubt. I think the one big question I think I have for Iowa is like, how good is your depth, right? We kind of touched on it a little bit there, but, we're going to see, Colin Shriver at 33, him and Brody Teske seem to be the 2 guys here. Tough matchup at 33 with Michael Kolioko, right? Top 10 in the country. How good is your depth, Iowa? I'm of the belief that both, Colin and Teske are guys that could probably make some noise and score some points come March. Wrestling a guy like Kolioko is going to show us, how many points are you going to score, right? Like, where are you at with a guy who's probably a dark horse All-American candidate at this weight? Same thing with, 157, which we'll touch on a little bit more depth here. Kobe Siebrecht seems to be the guy at 57 for Iowa, or at least the answer right now. Anthony Artelona, very, very good. Top 12 in the country. How good are you, Kobe Siebrecht, right? That's not really a depth question. I think that's more of a, let's see, if Tom thinks you're the guy, let's see you prove it a little bit. But then, 174, Nick Contreras, top 25 guy. Iowa right now doesn't have either Nelson Brands or Brendan Swafford. Looks like it's going to be one of 2 freshmen, Drake Rhodes or Carson Martinson, both guys that have gotten a match already this season. How good are you? It's a fun little test for the freshmen, right? And then, same thing as we've seen from the last few weeks. If you're an Iowa superstar and you're favored to win, go take care of business, right? Like this, like it would be really interesting and fun for the entire wrestling community, maybe outside of Iowa City, if Penn comes in and makes this super, super interesting. But if you're Iowa, Patrick Kennedy, like, you're favored in this match. Go take care of business. Abe Assad, you are favored in this match. Go take care of business. Same thing with Jacob Warner and Tony Cassiope. I know you just lost to 2 high-level guys on Tuesday. Go take care of business. Like that's that sort of thing. So, as long as those guys do, I guess, what they're supposed to do, very intrigued to kind of see like what Iowa's depth has, against, not just a team that, according to InterMat's dual meet rankings, top 15 in the country, but also, a program that's very clearly up and coming. And there's a lot of good things that are happening out there.
Yeah. You mentioned the 157 match. We should probably touch on it now, but Penn, they kind of swapped their middleweight classes right there, right? Last year, Doug Zaff was 157. Now he's down to 149. Artelona was around to 12 a few years ago at 149. And he was 149 last year. So that he's at 157 now. And he's 7-0 in the year, Artelona at 157.
Pretty good.
Like you said, ranked top 12 in the country, but he hasn't really faced anyone ranked this year yet. So not saying he hasn't had any quality opponents. He's had some tight matches, which is kind of his thing. His matches tend to be pretty close, but when he could open it up and score some bonus, he's tough. But I want to see this match here for him at 157, just to see him get that 1 hour weigh in, get to Carver Hawkeye and just see what he can do at 157. Obviously, same with Zaff. I think that's the match of the night. We'll probably get into that later, but yeah, I mean, he's a top 10 dude, beat a few ranked guys this year, and he's been looking good down a weight class. But again, it comes down to 1 hour weigh-in thing. She's down a weight class from last year. 1 hour weigh-in is a whole lot different than 2 hours, as you and I both know. And going into Carver Hawkeye, totally different environment. So I keep pointing on saying that part, but I think that's pretty important to touch on. Is Carver Hawkeye is a whole different animal.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, we can jump right into that now. The two matches I think you and I are both really excited to watch, 149 and 157. At 149, Iowa's Max Murin, Doug Zapp from Penn. 157, Kobe Siebrecht. We presume Caleb Rachi was also listed on the probables against Anthony Artolona from Penn. Let's start at 49, man. Actually, before we dive into those, I'm curious, why did they switch weights?
I wasn't told reason why, but just reading between the lines, Artolona has some injuries in the past few years. Make that weight cut on top of, I think he's going to be some kind of like mechanical engineering or something, Penn, Ivy League kind of smart guys, obviously, right? So
very, very smart guys.
Yeah, I think his class load this first semester is pretty heavy. So it's like, hey, let's just move up a weight, take care of that, get your academics in order. And then second semester, he's almost pretty much done with wrestling. So he could just almost done with school. So he can just pretty much focus on wrestling there. And Zaff was a 106 pounder, 5-6 years ago at Pennsylvania State's. So he kind of built up into that 57-pound weight class after qualifying at 133 and 141 a few years ago. So I think he's more of a naturally 49-pounder. I think it's a good switch for the team overall. Just again, with Artolona's injuries, going up a weight class, just focus on wrestling, not so much weight cutting. And Zaff, he's just a goer, man. He'll do, you tell him jump, he says how high, and he's going to jump as high as he could. He's one of those guys you want on the mat on your team. He's a great leader too. Interesting to see both these guys.
Yeah. From what you've seen so far from them, how have they adjusted to the weight switch? I mean, obviously, undefeated, Artolona 7-0, Doug Zapp 6-1 so far. Like, clearly things are working out, but just like, from what you've seen in terms of just the way that they've competed and the way they've wrestled, like what seems like it's working, right? But what have you seen?
Yeah, Zaff he's right there, man. He beat Caleb Henson from Virginia Tech in a tight overtime match last weekend. Henson beat Sasso the first week of the season.
Very weird weight. There's a lot of stuff going on.
Yeah, that's a fun weight to watch. Technically, he beat Kyle Parco of Arizona State. That was injury default, though, but he was in the match. I think he was about to score a takedown to tie it up or pull within one, so he's right there with those guys. Like I said, Artolona, not super tested this year by guys in the rankings, but, he's had some close matches to some quality opponents and kind of just finds a way to win. He just seems like, it sounds bad to say, but it doesn't look like he has a lot of fun out there because he's just so lackadaisical sometimes. That's probably the bad word to use, I know, but he just kind of hangs out and then boom, hits a shot and a kid ends up on his back, so he's fun to watch too. It's a little bit slower pace than Zaff. Zaff is a go kind of guy, which I think will be good with him and Murin in Carver Hawkeye. That'll be a good match, but Artolona likes to sit back, relax a little bit, wait for his chance. Kind of slows down the match a little bit, but he'll throw a headlock on you. He'll hit some throws. So he's exciting to watch as well.
Yeah,
good guys to have there.
100%. Quick research says that this will actually be Anthony Artolona's first ever match against a Hawkeye wrestler. So that's super interesting. And for Doug Zaff, this will actually be his fourth. You ready for this? He has wrestled in his career Austin DeSanto, Max Murin, and Caleb Young. So he lost to DeSanto at the Midlands. He lost to Young at the NCAA championships last year, but he beat Max Murin at the Midlands. I guess that would have been the year sandwiched between them. So now Zapp and Murin are going to go at it again. I really like this matchup because Zapp is kind of like you said, like he's a goer, maybe more of a natural fit at 49. Max is a pretty big 49, pretty strong. And I'm excited because I kind of like what you were saying, like this will be Max's real, like first true test, I think, of the season. He's looked really good so far. He's put up, I think I forgot if I wrote this stat down or if I maybe spoke it into a previous podcast. The guy's put up 75 match points, like through his first 4 matches, which is, we've never seen that from Max Murin before. Mm-hmm. Things are clearly clicking. We got to talk to him earlier today about how he's trying to embrace the fact that it's his last season at Iowa and just trying to let everything fly. But, hasn't wrestled the toughest schedule, like I said, He's 4-0 this year. Buffalo, Caleb Burgess, Matt Laurie from Sacred Heart, Matthew Williams from Army, Chaz Hallmark from Cal Baptist, 16, 20, 15, 24 points. I don't think Zapp's going to let him do that. So it's, one, can he keep the offense rolling, or, when Zapp is still coming at him in third period, that's Max is really good about that as well. He's a hard nose, going to lead with his head type of wrestler. That'll be kind of interesting to see from both sides there. When you get to the third period, and I'm presuming this is probably going to still be a pretty close match in the third period, who still has it? Who's got that gas tank? Who is still, firing on maybe not all cylinders at that point, but more cylinders than not, right? I think that's what's going to make that match, among other things, super intriguing. Because Max is very fundamental. He's going to stay in his stance. He's not going to do anything crazy. He's going to take calculated risks. Which against a guy like Zapp, that's, can you convert, right? Can you convert? And if you convert early, what does that mean? How does that set the tone for the rest of the match? There's a lot to like about this particular matchup, because it's going to have the feel of a blood round match, I feel like, because these are two guys that are probably going to be there come March, right?
Yeah, I was just going to say that it's more of a kind of a maybe round of 16, might be early, probably close to a blood round or even All-American round matches between these two. Just kind of go back on your point before, with Murin not getting pushed so much this year. I think that could be, if we're just looking at that angle, that's a huge advantage for Zaff, right? Because he's beaten Caleb Henson down to the wire in overtime. He was in there with Parco in a close match. Just lost to Jonathan Milner, two-time All-American from App State. And he was in that match till the end. I think it was a 5-3, 5-2 score. So he has that feel this season already of needing to go late in the match. Murin, not so much. But again, he's Iowa top rank, one of the top ranked guys there. So it might not be a thing for Murin, might not be an issue, but if you're looking at just that angle of it, I think Zaff definitely has that advantage over Murin.
Yeah. Well, and then also, Zapp's a goer. How does he handle that with the Carver crowd? Because the Carver, there's that, getting carvered, right? How do you handle the fact that you're going to have, 8, 10, 12,000 people booing you over the course of the match? Not that, you're a former athlete. Athletes will say oh no, you tune it out. You focus on that. No, sometimes that stuff can get to you sometimes if you're not ready for it or know what to expect. Right.
Yeah. I mean, advantage for Penn though is having Mark Hall on staff. We all know what happened when he came out of he got his red shirt pulled and he lost to, I forget who it was, but opponent that probably he shouldn't have lost to, right?
I don't know that Mark Hall ever won a match at Carver, which is crazy because he won literally everywhere else.
Yeah, so if there's a coach that you want in your corner to give you a little pep talk before that match at Carver Hawkeye, I mean, who better than Mark Hall, right? Because like you said, I don't think he's ever won there. That's a good point, but yeah.
Yeah, he had his red shirt was pulled and he lost to Alex Meyer, who was an All-American.
That's who it was,
and then that thrilling match against Michael Kemmer, when Iowa rallied to beat Penn State, that was before COVID shut down the postseason.
Yeah. Yep.
So that's a really good point. Mark Hall's probably going to have those dudes ready. 49, 57, I think is super interesting. Obviously you got Artelona who's wrestling very, very well. Has got some really nice wins to start the year. Pinned Antrell Taylor, who I think very, very highly of, pinned him very quickly. But then he also got a win over Jacob Butler from Oklahoma. Really nice stuff there. He seems to, kind of like what you said, very maybe a little bit more of a natural fit at 57, just focus more on wrestling than trying to worry about cutting weight. This is an interesting weight for Iowa because Kobe Siebrecht, local Lisbon boy from right down the road, he's a funky guy. I don't know that he's fully filled out at 157, but I mean, the guy's gritty. He will go attack. He's pretty good, underratedly pretty good on top. So I'm kind of curious to see how that portion of the match goes. If he's able to keep a guy like Artelona down. But this is, he had a test against Army's Nathan Luquez, passed it with flying colors, 8-0 major decision last week. But this is kind of Kobe got the nod from Tom, or he got it, I guess he got Tom's blessing as hey, this is your spot until you screw it up. Against Anthony Artelona is kind of the first, okay, how good are you really, bro?
Yeah.
Because Artelona's a guy that has been there. I'm not sure that he has gotten on the podium, but he's been to the blood round twice, right?
Yep, that's correct.
So that's a guy that's gone to the big dance in March. He has scored points at the big dance. It's just, I think from that standpoint, it's just super interesting to kind of see, okay, like what does Iowa really have in Kobe Siebrecht? I think that's what intrigues me the most about this matchup.
Yeah, and like you said, and kind of like I said before, Artelona just kind of finds a way to win. Like I keep repeating, didn't get tested so much, but he was in overtime last weekend at the Keystone Classic in the finals against Peter Pappas of George Mason. Quality wrestler, not ranked or anything that I know of, and if he is, he's low 30s. But they were in overtime. I thought Pappas had him dead in the rights with a leg up in the air, ended up in a scramble, and Artelona came out on top of it. So he, like I said, just finds a way to win, likes to scramble, likes to be in there, and just likes these tough matches, and just comes away, usually finds a way on top of them. So he's fun to watch, and like I said, I think it'll be match 1A of the favorites coming in. I think Zap 49 is the match of the night. I think this will be a close second.
Yeah. How does Artelona handle not super funky wrestlers, but slightly funky wrestlers? Because that's kind of what I would call Kobe Siebrecht.
Mm-hmm.
Like when it comes to defending, he's a leg passer. He'll find, but like it works for him. He's got a little bit of offense on his feet, but I'm very curious to kind of see like, a guy like Artelona, who that guy's going to come in and is going to score some points. He's done this before at this level. How does Kobe handle that? Like, how does Artelona handle guys who, how does he handle leg passers? Let's phrase it that way.
I mean, yeah, his offense is not quite like Zaff. Like we talked about, Zaff is a goer. He's kind of the opposite. Artelona likes to pick his shots a little more selectively, a little more defensive minded. But like I said, in that overtime last week at Keystone, if you ever go back and watch it, it's Pappas had his leg up in the air. I thought Artelona was going to lose, and he just rolled. I forget the situation. Rolled out of it, scrambled out of it, or whatever. Ended up winning in overtime because of that. So I've seen him scramble. I've seen him throw guys, throw headlocks. It's kind of, you don't know what you're going to get. Artelona's like a box of chocolates, like that saying, Forrest Gump saying. You don't know what you're going to get with him, but he's up for the match. I think it'll be a good one, like you said. Could see some scrambling, could see a big throw, and I don't know what's going to happen. Artelona is one of those guys. You gotta kind of be ready for everything with him.
It could be one of those matches where like they scramble and they roll and they go through all these different positions and like no points are scored, or like one of them will catch the other and then boom, it's 6-0 in a blink, and it's like, okay, now we're going.
Yeah. And then, it might come back where the other guy catches the other guy. It might be 6-6 or 8-6, something like that, so yeah, I'm excited for this match. It could be 1-1 going to third, or it could be 8-8. It's one of those flip a coin, we'll see what happens kind of matches.
Absolutely. And then when taking them together, this kind of leads into the last thing I wanted to ask you about. Taking them together, assuming we start at 25, that stretch, that 49-57 stretch, I know that's the end of the first half, but like that could be pretty big for the part of the duel, because you assume Penn's probably going to win 25. They're favored at 33. We'll call 41 a toss-up. If Iowa can take those two, Hawkeyes probably feel pretty good. Assuming they start at 25 again, you'd have Patrick Kennedy coming out of halftime immediately. But if Penn takes those two, probably a funny feeling in the Hawkeye locker room at half, right? Like, especially if you just, assume they take 25, and then if they're able to, obviously take 33, like not saying that they'll take all 5 to start the duel, but it's not unreasonable to think, right? Like, especially if they show up on their A game.
Yeah. I mean, best case scenario for Penn would be to win those first 5 matchups, right? And maybe bonus points at 25 from Ryan Miller, who's very capable of doing that. It would definitely be an interesting feeling in both locker rooms, I'd say. More so in Iowa, it's like, hey, we got to get our ass in gear now. We got to start getting bonus points here. Kennedy, you're up. Next man up. But again, Ravano, top 20 guy in the country, tough opponent. I think. Obviously, Kennedy's going to be favored in that one, but Ravano, he likes overtime matches, man. He likes to keep things low scoring. 5-4 in the year, but all his matches are super, super close overtime matches. I think, I don't think Ravano's going to win that one, but if he holds that to a decision, I think, and Penn takes the first 5, best case scenario, I think there's a different conversation here on Monday. Yeah,
no doubt. And you look at, the guys he's lost to close this year, Tony Negron from Arizona State. You went to overtime with Connor Brady. Traded wins and losses with Hunter Mays of Rider, who, probably right there on the NCAA bubble, at least right now during the season. Man, like there's a lot of intrigue around this duel. Not just because Iowa maybe doesn't have the fully loaded lineup, but also because Penn, like as a program, they're on their way up, and it'll be a kind of a fun little showcase, for Iowa's depth, but then also like, hey, Penn, like where are you at? You're coming to Big Ten country. Like, if they wrestle hard, even in a losing effort, if they continue to wrestle hard, like we probably know they will, they'll gain a lot of respect and some fans out of Iowa City, which I think is always kind of a cool thing when the Iowa City fans, as rabid and as passionate as they are, acknowledge when the other guys do some really cool things. So there's a fun duel coming up this Saturday. I'm excited for it.
Yeah, just another thing with Penn too. I think they have like 3 or 4 big boarders committed next year already, recruiting wise. So if they go out to Iowa and put on a show, more, I think that'll help recruiting and their marketability as well. It's like, hey, they're Ivy League. Ivy League wrestling used to not be a thing, but hey, it's here now. It's here to stay. Between Penn, Cornell, Princeton, obviously too, Columbia, Harvard, Brown. They just got a new coach, so they're all kind of on the rise here. So it'll be a good look for Penn and then Ivy Leagues, across the board as well. I think good opportunity for Penn.
100%. Last question I got before we let you go. What's the score? What's your prediction?
I think Penn's going to win 5 matches.
Woo!
So I'll give them 16, but I think Penn in the upper weights might be a little more. So I'll say like 18, 16, 18, 15, something like that. Iowa, but I think Penn could make it interesting here.
The best part about doing these podcasts on YouTube now is that people can see your Penn shirt. And so they'll be like, oh, whatever.
Yeah, He's a homer, right? I gotta be though. They're the underdogs. I gotta back my team up here. So yeah, I mean, they could, like I said, they could win 5 or 6. They could win 1 or 2 matches. It depends on the crowd and the environment. Everything leading up to the match, obviously, right? But best case scenario, I think they could win 6 matches here. I think they could squeak it out for sure.
Yeah, I think there's a path for Penn to pull the ultimate upset here. I'm not sure that they do. I think this duel is something like 27-13 Iowa written all over it. I think we're at 49-57, but really curious to see how 33 goes. Also kind of curious about 41. Like, I know we didn't really dive into that match too much, but that's an important match within the context of the first half of the duel. If, assuming again, we start at 25, and then obviously, some ranked matchups at heavy and 97. Just gonna be kind of interesting to see how Warner and Cassiope respond after taking losses on Tuesday. You've got Iowa winning. I've got Iowa winning. Separate scores. I got a little distance between the Hawks and the Quakers. You've got Penn making this really, really interesting. Man, I really appreciate you coming on and having this conversation. Any final parting thoughts before we close off here?
No, like I said, I think it'll be a good match. I hope Penn stays away from too much turkey. I think they'll be locked and loaded, really, really focused on this match, especially after last weekend. They got second at the Keystone Classic behind Virginia Tech, which is obviously a solid program, but they hosted this event. They want to win that thing. Fill up a little short. So I think that's sticking with them as well. And I just think they see the opportunity here. Coach Reina and, Coach Hall and Coach Pearsall, Coach Futrell, they're all high quality coaches. And, I think they're going to talk them up and, they're going to say, hey, here's the opportunity, go take it. See what you guys are made of. I think they're going to challenge them. I think they're going to come out ready to score. I think it'll be a good match.
Iowa-Penn, Saturday afternoon, 2 p.m. Central Time, going to be on Big Ten Plus. So if you don't have that, be sure to go and subscribe. I believe they have a wrestling-only option, $70 for an entire year. I'm subscribed, so maybe other people should as well. If not, obviously Austin and I will be providing various updates. I'll be in the building. I'm not sure, Austin, you're going to make the trek all the way out here?
I wish I could, believe me. Yeah, but I don't think my wife would be happy just leaving her last minute with my 5-month-old at home. So I pick and choose my travel these days.
Big 10 plus for Saturday's duel, Iowa-Penn, again, 2 p.m. Central Time. Guys, that's all we've got today. I appreciate you tuning in. Hopefully this YouTube thing goes well over the course of the wrestling season. We'll be back again next week. But in the meantime, be sure to rate and review the show, Apple, Stitcher, Spotify, Google Podcasts, iHeartRadio, wherever you listen to your shows. Be sure to subscribe to the Des Moines Register on YouTube. Follow your boy on Twitter at Cody Goodwin. And be sure to subscribe to the Register to catch all my stories, mailbags, analysis, and videos. You find links to do all of that, as well as stories from this past week, in the show notes. Thanks again for listening, you guys. Appreciate you coming on, Austin. We will talk to you guys again soon.
Peace out, guys.